General Milan Naidu, former Vice Chief of the Indian Army. He is a graduate from Canadian Forces Staff College, Toronto. He was commissioned into the Rajput Regiment in 1967. During the 41 years of his eventful service, he undertook several prestigious and challenging assignments. I invite you to initiate the discussion, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we discuss a very important topic and a very important book, Meghdut, The Beginning of the Coldest War. This book is most profound, and I will share with you that when I got hold of this book, I was returning from abroad, and the whole night I thought I'll read a couple of chapters and then take a snooze, but the book wouldn't leave me, and I was forced to go through the entire book that whole night and didn't sleep at all. Now, he's written the book in a very interesting manner, and all the facts and details that he has given are most relevant, and I'm sure that you will understand, or perhaps you will be able to find out once you go through the book. But I can vouch for the authenticity of the book, in the sense the facts that he has listed out there. It is a very light reading, and all the details are explained logically and chronologically, and you can go through the book like a thriller, and the issues he has not glossed over. All the details are very much there. Now, with this, I think I'll start with the first question. This style of your book was unique, something different. How did you come on to this style of writing the book?
Well, thank you so much, sir, for your gracious comments on the book. Coming from you, it means a lot. Operation Meghdut was launched on 13th of April 1984 and is a brilliantly conceived operation of the Indian Army. Many people have written about it, but surprisingly, when I spoke to a number of people, especially the millennials, I found that people are not aware of why we had to go there. They're also not aware of how we ultimately captured the Saltoro Heights in 1984. So therefore, I felt that this was a story that definitely needed to be told. And it had to be told in a manner which engages and resonates with the slightly younger audience, so that they are able to appreciate the sacrifices of the soldiers and also able to appreciate why we are on those heights. Now, Siachen as a whole, the moment I say Siachen, it invites, it inspires awe, and you have natural feelings of patriotism. But people are not aware of all the relevant facts. So therefore, I consciously decided that whatever I write, it has to be in a manner that you should be able to read it in 2 to 3 hours, and you should be able to, at the end of the book, know why India is on top of the glacier, how we achieved this thing, and at the same time you are able to clear all the misconceptions which have entered the discourse, because my research has shown that as far as Siachen is concerned, there are a lot of misconceptions which have come in, and a lot of selective presentation of facts has been done, and misinterpretations have also taken place. So as a researcher, I'm duty bound to place the correct facts which I think are correct, so that people can take a balanced view. That is why I chose a format which anybody can read in about 2 to 3 hours, very simple, to explain all the issues in a very uncomplicated manner. So that was a very conscious decision to shift over from an academic format to a slightly more engaging format. And the icing would be that if you read the book, you should be able to actually see the action. So my objective is I say that I will fail in my objective if after reading the book you don't finish it in 3 hours. And if you finish the book, and if somebody asks you, have you actually seen Operation Meghdut? Did you visualize what would have happened? The answer should be in the affirmative. That alone would satisfy me as far as the book is concerned.
Yes, I tend to agree with you that after you finish the book and someone asks you, you can feel, you can visualize the action, the manner in which he has written this book. And the most interesting thing is that he's quoted all the books that have been written on the subject. Naturally, he must have read it. And he has also quoted other things which are from the other side of the hill, and that is from Pakistan. And therefore, he has been able to manage a lot of things. These are details, actually speaking, we in the armed forces also tend to gloss over. But they are relevant, and I think it is a fantastic job he has done. Now, tell me one thing. What is the misrepresentation that you have seen in various literature or the books that have been written by various people?
Well, so that's a very interesting thing and a very pertinent question that you've put in. You see, it's been 38 years since India moved into Siachen. And it's surprising that despite a lot of books that have been written, there is a wide divergence of views on the subject on both sides of the border. So, to find the solution of a problem, I believe that we first need to establish the facts. Then we need to identify the law. And then we interpret the facts in accordance with the law. That is the normal procedure. Unfortunately, as far as this is concerned, what has happened is that we disagree with each other on the facts. We disagree with each other on the law. So there is no way that we can agree with each other on the interpretation. There is bound to be a difference. So I'll give you an example. For example, if you see even now, from 2015 to 2022, if you see the writings which have emerged in Pakistan, they refuse to believe that India preempted them. I mean, the story that is put out for consumption, public consumption in Pakistan is that India committed a blatant act of aggression, contrary to the Shimla Agreement. And that is what people understand there. But the fact of the matter is they don't tell their citizens that in 1983, Pakistan in fact occupied the glacier. The Special Services Group of the Pakistan Army was at the Bilafondla in October 1983. And the only reason why they came back was because they were not adequately prepared. Now, for an army to say that, look, we were not prepared, we came back and then we were caught napping is a very inconvenient kind of a truth. But then it needs to be portrayed. So this is one aspect. And this is all written. What I've done is, I've only researched from the books that have been written by General Parvez Musharraf. He has said so in his autobiography. Lieutenant General Jahandad Khan, who was the Corps Commander of 10 Corps at Rawalpindi and who oversaw the Pakistani Operation Ababil, he writes in his book that we were preempted. In fact, we were there, we went back, and then the Indians got wind of it and then they came in. Shuja Nawaz has written it. So, these are the kind of things that have happened. Then, if you go a little deeper, then you'll find that the bulwark of the Pakistani claim to Siachen was always that there were some international cartographers who had drawn a line which used to go from the last demarcated point, that is NJ 9842. From that point, the line went northeastwards towards the Karakoram Pass. Now the question that arises in the mind is, how did this line emerge? After all, when I lay claim to something, then I must have a legal basis. I mean, you say, today somebody says this property belongs to me, then I ask you as a lawyer, what is your title document? Now somebody says that, look, this line belongs to me, and this is what Pakistan did. They sent us a protest note on 21st of August 1983, in which they claimed that the LOC moves from NJ 9842 to the Karakoram Pass. Now the question is, when we ask them how they did that, it's a very surprising story, sir, which has emerged. In fact, in the last 2 years, documents have been declassified by the State Department in the United States, and they show that this line was actually made in the United States by the geographer of the Department of State, Robert Hodgson. So what happened was that, a query was sent from India about how the borders of the state of Jammu and Kashmir should be depicted in the maps of the United States. Now, in answer to this query, Robert Hodgson, who was the chief cartographer of the State Department, he said that, look, this line currently, which is the ceasefire line, is hanging in the air, and so it should be closed. It's as simple as that. He felt that this border should be closed, and therefore he drew a straight line joining the NJ 9842 with the Karakoram Pass. And he in turn drew this from the ADIZ maps which the Americans had prepared. You know, there are certain maps called the Air Defense Information Zone maps, information identification maps, yes, which are, prepared for the assistance of the pilots. Now they draw these lines, but this has nothing to do with the boundaries of the countries. Now these maps showed this line. Robert Hodgson picked it up, and in 1968, he drew a line which joins NJ 9842 with the Karakoram Pass. So you have to appreciate this was not the ceasefire line that we had agreed to. This was not any international boundary, but it was just a small discussion taking place between four people in 1968, and just to ensure that the map looked beautiful and complete, a line was drawn in the mountains. So the line which Pakistan claimed as its own was not even conceived in Pakistan. It was not even drawn in Pakistan. And yet, for so many years, we've been fighting over it. Now, based on that line, once that line came into existence in 1968, what happened was that international cartographers picked it up. Once the US administration drew a map, the State Department drew a map closing the borders from NJ 9842 till the Karakoram Pass, the international cartographers started picking it up. And once Pakistan got wind of it, that look, this line is being shown in international maps as territory belonging to us, why not start some probing? So in the 70s, what started happening was that Pakistan started sending mountaineering expeditions to the Karakoram region, and specifically to this area. So you had mountaineers coming in, going out, they started issuing licenses, charging some sort of fee, and all those things started happening. We came to know of this in 1978, and that's a story which I've written in the book. Colonel Bul Kumar used to be the commandant at the HAWS, the High Altitude Warfare School at Sonmarg. And when he got to know of this, he brought this to the attention of the then Director of Military Operations, General Chibbard. And then Lieutenant General Chibbard also took this up very seriously, and then he sent a team to do the local recce. And thereafter, things started. Pakistan got to know that we are doing the recce, we got to know that they are doing the recce, and they came in, and then we ultimately moved in. So the point that I'm trying to make is that, one, the line that they claim was not drawn in the country itself, misrepresentations about the aggression by India, and then misrepresentations about the only agreement which is applicable to this region. Now that is the Karachi Agreement. And that agreement has been repeatedly misrepresented, and it has been claimed that that agreement is vague. So the entire discourse on Siachen is that, here is an agreement which we signed, this agreement is vague, and India interprets this agreement for the line to go westwards, northwestwards, while Pakistan interprets it to go northeastwards. The fact of the matter is that that agreement is very clear. All that agreement says is that the line has to go north to the glaciers. It does not mention anything about going northwestwards or northeastwards. And as I already explained, that northwestward line, which Pakistan now claims emanated from this agreement, was actually drawn in the United States. So how does then one justify a claim? You say that the agreement is vague. Because if an agreement is vague, then what happens? Then you can live with your interpretation, I can live with my interpretation, and we can fight for the rest of our lives. Because you have an interpretation. If something is clear, then it requires no interpretation. So therefore the Karachi Agreement has been, stated to be vague. People have said that the NJ 9842 is the terminal point as far as that agreement is concerned. That also is incorrect. NJ 9842 is the last demarcated point as far as that agreement is concerned. It is not the terminal point. In fact, it cannot be the terminal point, because that agreement itself mentions that the line has to be drawn in a manner so that there is no man's land left. So if that agreement had been effectuated completely, then there was no question of any no man's land being there. So these three theories which are floating around, are a great source of misconception that has, gone into this entire discourse. This theory of incomplete delimitation, this theory of vagueness, and this theory of no man's land. And they are completely belittled by the agreement itself. So these are basic things which, need to come out, and people need to know. Ultimately, once people know the strength of their case, only then will they decide whether we have a case or not. Otherwise, you can keep on arguing and this will continue.
Thank you. Thank you. But tell me, is there any scope of resolution between these two conflicting points of view that we have? One is ours and one is that of Pakistan. Whether is there any scope for resolution?
So the whole idea is, sir, that's what I said, that when you have a set of when you have a colored narrative being presented before a willing audience, then what happens? Then it gives rise to a false sense of entitlement. If I keep on telling you this property belongs to you, you keep on telling that to your son, and then he keeps on passing it on without there being any title document, then there will be generations which will start believing that yes, we are the owners. Unfortunately, in this dispute, this is the situation, that there is a lot of information floating around, and the resolution will come once correct facts are there, when people realize the strength of their case, and then people sit across and start discussing. I think that therefore, as researchers, we are duty bound to ensure that all the correct facts come out in the public domain, and then a debate starts, and ultimately it is only such a debate which will result in a resolution.
Maybe you would like to tell the audience as to what is the difference that you have explained in your book or tried or mentioned in your book in terms of delimitation, in terms of demarcation and delineation.
Yes, yeah. So I think it would be, there is a presentation, if somebody could play that presentation. The next slide, please. Yes, yes. So if you can see on the screen, you will see this is the ceasefire line, which was demarcated in 1949. We fought our first war with Pakistan on Kashmir in 1947, and that war ended with a ceasefire line being drawn under the auspices of the United Nations Commission of India and Pakistan. So if you see the end point of the line, you will see it pointing straight and going northwards. This is the end point, if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, that's the end point. Can we have the next slide, please? So I've reproduced that. Now, at the end, you will see the line goes from Khor, and then it goes northwards, and then it abruptly stops at NJ 9842. Now, this point is a little short of the border, about 40 miles short of the border. Can we have the next slide, please? And the next one. Now, if you see, the logical question that comes to the mind is, why does this line stop there? What did the Karachi agreement entail? Now, I have reproduced the relevant clauses of the agreement because in most of the literature that you read, you will find that people are trying to tell you that the agreement is vague, but the clauses will not be reproduced. So you will find the clauses also in the book as well as the agreement, so that you can decide for yourself whether it is vague or not. Now, if you see the last line, the clause says that the line shall go from Chalunka on the Shyok, Khor, thence north to the glaciers. So the agreement is very clear. It says that the line shall be demarcated subsequently, and it has to go north to the glaciers. Now please see clause C. Clause C says that the ceasefire line described above shall be drawn on a 1-inch map and then be verified mutually by the local commanders so as to eliminate any no man's land. The agreement is very clear. If at all this line had to be extended from here, then which direction was it supposed to go, sir? It was supposed to go north. And how was it to be extended? In a manner so as to eliminate any no man's land. Can we have the next slide, please? Whatever could have happened, this could not have happened. Now you see the glacier, the line that has been drawn from NJ 9842 to the Karakoram Pass is the extension that has been drawn and claimed by Pakistan. And this is not borne out from the agreement. Because if you see the two clauses of the agreement, they clearly say that if at all it had to be extended, it had to go northwards. But now you see that the line is going in a north easterly direction. So the agreement essentially delimited the border completely, the ceasefire line completely. It was only the demarcation which was done subsequently which was incomplete. Because the demarcation was incomplete, therefore the delineation of the line on the map is also incomplete. Can we have the next slide, please? This is the ADIZ map which you can see was drawn in the United States in 1967. Now this map clearly shows Pakistan North ADIZ and India North ADIZ. It is this line which was reproduced by cartographers and which is claimed by Pakistan as a line that should actually demarcate the borders between India and Pakistan. So this particular line is actually non-existent. This line does not emanate from the agreement as I've shown, because if the line had to be drawn, it had to go north. And once we came to know that Pakistan was trying to occupy territory along this line, we mounted an operation and strategically occupied the Saltoro Heights, which are on the westward slope. Can we have the previous slide, please? This one. So if you see the Saltoro Ridge, the Siachen Glacier is on the eastern side of the Saltoro Ridge. From Pakistan, the Siachen Glacier is not even visible. Yeah. Yes, that is the Saltoro Ridge, sir. Right. So once Pakistan decided to stake its claim to this line, we occupied all the higher reaches of the Saltoro Ridge, and there were three important passes. One is Gyongla, the other is the Bilafondla, and the highest is the Siala. And once we occupied all these passes, it was virtually impossible for Pakistan to come onto the Siachen Glacier.
Yes. I think when you mentioned this, these passes, in your chapter, when you are talking of Gyongla, one of the protagonists is very much in the audience, and you quoted him.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How did you manage to sort of resurrect the conversation that went on, which you have mentioned in your book, all over? Like, actually speaking, it's a very, very interesting format that I saw. So how did you visualize that? Is there any truth in that, or you just visualize from your own mind, if this is what could have happened, or this is how they would have spoken?
So again, that's a very interesting question. Now, the thing is that a lot of books have been written on this subject. Now, it was a challenge for me to encapsulate the ratio of whatever has been written in all the books and present it in a manner that the audience could easily understand. Now, for that, what I did was, all the facts emanate from verifiable sources. They emanate from interviews, they emanate from writings that have been given. General Chibbard has written an account. So from all those things, I have kind of tried to reconstruct what would have happened. So the conversations may be created to bring the facts out, but the facts which emerge are all correct and they are all verifiable. And interesting that you talk about Gyongla, because whenever we talk of Siachen, if you Google Siachen, then you will be told that on 13th of April, a platoon of 4 Kumaon was airlifted and Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni landed and occupied Bilafondla and so on and so forth, which marks the commencement of the operation actually. But there was, amongst all the readings which I did, I found that there was a slight piece that was missing, because there was another pass which I came across, and that is Gyongla. And I found that, there was no written material available in the books that had already been written, which mentioned about how this Gyongla had been captured. And this was quite puzzling because, Gyongla provides an easier access, overlooks our positions, and Bilafondla and Siala are further up. So when I did my research, I found that there was 19 Kumaon, another battalion which was involved in these operations. That battalion was instrumental in capturing Gyongla, and that portion had somehow been missed in the various records. So the other thing which I wanted to do was bring on record the fact that 19 Kumaon also had a major role to play, and in fact, we are fortunate that Brigadier Sanjay Agarwal is with us, and he was instrumental in capturing the OP Hill, which is the closest we are in a face-off with the Pakistanis. So he actually carried an MMG to a position on OP Hill and was able to capture Gyongla for us. And with the capture of Gyongla, Belafond and Siala, our domination on Siachen was complete.
And ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier Sanjay Agarwal was also awarded for his bravery and valor of this particular action of capturing Gyongla. So we are fortunate he is here. Now, tell me, we failed to resolve this issue of NJ 9842 northwards, whatever it was. Why do you think we didn't bother about this after 1972 when the agreement, similar agreement was signed? Because it doesn't mention anything about this.
Sir, the similar agreement was signed in 1972, and in that agreement what happened was that the ceasefire line was converted into the line of control. The ceasefire line, the line of control is nothing but the ceasefire line of 1949, but in which we retained the gains of war. So the ceasefire line, original ceasefire line, and the gains of war, we got Turtuk and other things in 1972, and the ceasefire line accordingly changed into the line of control. But the line of control also terminated at NJ 9842. It did not go further. So there is no line of control. This is again a very misconception that is prevalent in the discourse, that the line of control extends beyond NJ 9842 and the Simla agreement covers the field. So Simla agreement does not cover the field. Line of control ends at NJ 9842. Now, neither did we raise this issue at that point of time. We should have. We should have raised many issues. But neither did Pakistan. So nothing turns on it. अब हमने उनको नहीं कुछ कहा तो उन्होंने भी ये नहीं कहा कि साहब ये एरिया हमारा है, आप इसको आगे डिमार्केट करके हमें दे दीजिए. Because the status quo was maintained as it was at the time of Karachi. So if you can we have the next slide? I'll show you the superimposition of the LOC on the ceasefire line which I've done. Can we have the next slide, please? And the next one. Next one. Yeah. Now, if you see this slide, you will see what I have done is that this is the original ceasefire line. No, that pointer won't work on the pixels. Okay, but you can see that it is a superimposition of the ceasefire line and the line of control. The bottom line is the ceasefire line as per the Karachi agreement. This is the line which you saw in the initial slide, which was pointing northwards. In 1972, the line of control, we got Turtuk Tyakshi, and now it goes and joins 973330, but in the end it again goes northwards. So there is no change in the orientation of the line. So if at all the line has to go beyond NJ 9842, it has to follow the orientation that was given in the ceasefire agreement. It is nobody's case today that the ceasefire agreement is not valid. In fact, a lot of Pakistani authors have written on this, that India has violated the ceasefire agreement, has violated the Karachi agreement. The fact of the matter is that the Karachi agreement still squarely covers the field beyond NJ 9842. It is valid, and if at all the line had to be extended, it had to go northwards. But the fact of the matter is that that bus has now been missed, because you can't blow hot and cold at the same time. Pakistan on one hand said that, look, this is a no man's land, so let us move in and claim a line which is contrary to the agreement. When we got wind of it, we occupied the areas. So now it is not for them to say that, look, let us go back to the agreement and enforce that agreement. So now the status quo is that we are on the Saltoro Heights, the glacier is well within our area, and it is not even visible from the Pakistani side. And unless and until that position is accepted by Pakistan, and it has to be, because initially also they never had a case. They were claiming a property for which they had no title. They have no historical, legal or factual basis for that claim. This claim was based on a map made by somebody else. It's like you trying to claim a property because somebody in United States has written your address on a piece of land, and you say that, look, my address is written there, so please give this property to me. This is exactly what has happened here.
No, you have a point, and I think that is correct. That we have to maybe go legally to in order to resolve this issue. But tell me one thing: how did you manage now that your book has been approved to be made into a film? The clearance has been given for that. How did you manage the dialogues? Were they real, or you interviewed, and how did you imagine the dialogues and how they went about it?
So, sir, if you see, a lot of written material has, exists in the public domain, where there are interactions which have been mentioned. So, for example, Lieutenant General M.L. Chibbard has written a personal account in which he mentions most of these things, that Narendra Kumar walked into my office and I told him, what bullshit are you coming and telling me, those kind of things. So all those things have been written by him. I was fortunate enough to interview Brigadier Channa when he was there with us, Colonel Narendra Kumar, and he also narrated a number of things. So once I identified and pieced the jigsaw together, it started taking the shape of a story. So for example, if you read Lieutenant General Jahandad Khan's book, Pakistan Leadership Challenges, he mentions very clearly about seeing 19 Kumaon, mentions about the movement of 19 Kumaon. Then he mentions very clearly that a meeting took place in Rawalpindi, which was chaired by General Ziaul Haq, in which this matter was discussed, and the Operation Ababil was given the go-ahead. So those things I picked up from there. So likewise, if you read, there are about 70-80 books and research papers, and if you read all of them, they have extensively quoted different people. So all that I had to do was I had to, kind of put them in a sequential manner, because otherwise it would have, moved back and forth. The challenge for me was to put it chronologically. And to do that, I had to, at some point of times, to ensure that the correct facts come out, I had to create some conversation. So there may be instances where a meeting might not have taken place, but I have shown it to ensure that the correct facts come out and the string of chronology is not broken.
Now, are you working beyond this book that you have already written? Are you going to work on something similar, or on the same subject you're planning to do? Because a lot of water has flown under the bridge after your book has been written. And there are a lot of rumors in the media and things like this that Siachen should be given away, or it's a wasteland and nothing grows there. Then why are we holding it? And we are spending so much of money every day in order to maintain those troops there. So are you planning on something besides this? And what do you think of this wasteland business?
So in fact, the prime reason, as I mentioned earlier, for writing the book was to actually clear this misconception that Siachen does not belong to us or should be given away. There is no question of that happening, because if you analyze the law, I've tried to give you the Pakistani perspective also, I've tried to give you the Indian perspective also, so that let the reader decide where the scales tilt. But the fact of the matter is that it is something which, to which Pakistan never had any claim. And merely because India has been in a position to occupy it, gives no reason for somebody to say that now we should go back because we've, preempted somebody. So that matter, I think, is something which needs to be very clearly understood, that you don't have a claim and you have to accept the position as it is. And if you are not able to do that, then this stalemate will continue. But if you are able to appreciate all the facts in their correct perspective, understand the agreement, understand that the line that you were claiming was not even made by you, then perhaps one day somebody might see some reason and say that, look, this is not an issue to be fought on. If they authenticate our positions, then I don't think there would be a problem in moving to the next stage, which would be, understanding how the area has to be policed. So that is, insofar as this business of, kind of giving back is concerned, this is all, in my view, completely fallacious. Now, the second point which you mentioned about additional work, this book is essentially an easy read. I believe everybody can read it in about 3 or 4 hours and understand how we are there, why we are there, and we can see the operation also. I am currently working, and it gives you a conspectus of the whole operation from 1978 till 84. So my book actually starts from the Indian discovery of the cartographic aggression. When we came to know that the Pakistanis are doing it, then what all did we do? And I end at the domination of Siachen. When we, in 1984, when we captured Gyeongla, Bilaphonla and Siala, I ended there. I have not moved beyond that. Now in the subsequent work, I intend to cover all the talks that have taken place. There have been almost 12, 13 rounds of talks that have taken place. I want to examine the legal arguments that were given by Pakistan at that point of time and our response, and see where we are standing as far as the international law and the law is concerned. So that is something which I am working on, and that will take care of the period from 84 till date, and try to put things in the correct perspective. This book essentially deals with understanding the genesis of the dispute, because in my view, if you don't know the genesis of a problem, you will not be able to solve it. So therefore, you must understand why this problem has arisen, and then we can, move on to the next step.
Well, now I suppose we can throw the questions, throw the house open for question and answers. Anyone was wanting to ask?
There was also one question which was going to ask was about demilitarization. I'm a scientist, microbiology, I've got interest in there was also a fear that because Siachen Valley has been ceded to the Chinese at some future point, because of the
Right.
there's a threat to Siachen Glacier in a joint operation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is, I mean, considering what China is doing now, there is no question of, moving back from those heights, because things change very, very quickly. Technologies change. In 1984, when we were planning this occupation, people were thinking that, why are we going to such a high area? How will we survive? Now technologies have changed. The troops are perfectly well acclimatized. They have the necessary equipment. So likewise, today we cannot say that any area is a wasteland or not strategically important, because tomorrow people will have the technology to settle there. They will have the technology to stay there comfortably. This was exactly what was said about Antarctica. In 1970s, people said, who will go to Antarctica? Now people go and stay there, they study there, do their research there, then come back as if it's a holiday. So things will change, and this area is of great strategic significance because it forms a wedge between the Siachen Valley, which has been ceded to China, and the Gilgit-Baltistan. So this wedge is something which we cannot give away. Tomorrow people may say that, look, Pakistan has much easier access to our strategic locations. Why would they use this? Now the answer is, today they might not use this. They might not have the technology. But just as we are very comfortable at the top today, tomorrow China will also be comfortable at the top. So do we want to see a situation? And this was exactly what was Lieutenant General Chibber's mindset when he planned this operation. In fact, this issue was raised even at that point of time. And people said that why do we need to go there? Because, nobody can access it. And he had said that, look, today nobody can access it. Today I can't talk. But tomorrow you may have something like a cell phone and people will communicate. So therefore, this is something which is of great strategic significance now.
Besides this, there are a lot of resources which are available in that area, natural resources.
Absolutely.
Which we have
It's
not...
the source of the Nubra River. The Siachen Glacier is the source of the Nubra River.
Not explored. We have not even explored. And the biggest resource we find is the fresh water. And in times to come, because of the climate change and things like this, fresh water will have very much importance in the calculation of warfare between nations.
Absolutely.
So I don't think we can overlook this point and give away Siachen for any reason. And effort required is there, but now all through the year we are maintaining troops at the minimum human cost. Human cost earlier, because we didn't know the area well, there was a lot of casualties. A lot of people had to be evacuated and things like that. Now there's almost 0% casualties. Anyone else? I think this is a very interesting book, and all discerning people, citizens of India, must. I recommend they must read this, and I can assure you, I can vouch for it that it will go through like a novel. The way he has written, it is something fabulous, which I have not ever experienced with any other military-related books, military history-related books. So I would recommend that everyone must read
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so
and
much, sir.
Get hold of all the facts and figures of why and how we are there. Well, with this,
I
thank
think
you.
there's one more question. I think you wanted to ask something.
With this NJ 9842 in a strategic position for India, these things, as the economy is growing, there's a tough war between the eastern nations rather than the west. This will become a more strategic point in the future or not? Like when back in the 1980s, the people who were planning this had a vision that at a point someday we would be talking about this and it would carry the most important strategic position for India. But now with being the countries, the China area, going at an economic competition, would this be a part of more strategic position that the countries are having an economical competition, but the defense part is also important to look on? And will this NJ 9842 will be an important strategic position for India?
No, as is already mentioned, you see, strategically, this is a very, geographically, if you see, it is a very important location. It forms a wedge, and it's at the, and it's a location which today is accessible, is a location which today is maintainable. People, troops can stay there. And if we can do it, then on the other side, the other people can also do it. If we can access it, the other side can also access it. And obviously, beyond this lies the Khunjera Pass if you go all the way along the top. So therefore today for us to strategically, I mean, I don't see a road or something of that sort happening. But the fact of the matter is that strategically these heights are very important for us, because the Nubra Valley and especially the Chinese overtures that are taking place today, which we are all aware of, we don't want to open another front on this side. Here we are on very solid ground. That solid ground has to be maintained at all costs. We can't give it, we can't cede it away.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an interesting conversation. Now I would request Brigadier Sanjay Agarwal to please come forward and felicitate the author and discussant with a memento as a symbol of love, respect and gratitude.